He grips the bow firmly between his toes, pointing his feet toward the target. He then picks up the arrow using his other foot and hooks it into a small metal clasp. Slowly, he leans back, pulling the string and lining up the shot. Then he releases the arrow by triggering the clasp with his jaw, sending it straight into the bullseye. And this precision is what earned him an Olympic medal. A meteor headed straight for a small house, where a woman inside was napping on her couch. The rock smashed into a wooden radio, bouncing off and slamming into her side. The meteorite was the size of a grapefruit, and she became the first and only person to be hit by one and survive. But her landlady claimed the rock belonged to her because she owned the house. So she sued the woman, and she had to pay $500 just to keep the rock that hit her. But the endless stress from media attention wrecked her life, so she eventually gave it away to a museum. If you pulled a fish out of the ocean and dropped it into a pond, it would quickly die. That's because without salt, they absorb too much water, making their organs swell. But if a bull shark is plopped into a lake, they start peeing like crazy, up to 20 times more than normal, to flush out the excess water they're absorbing. At the same time, a special gland in their butt works overtime to hold on to salt, preserving the delicate balance in their blood that most fish would lose, meaning you could find a bull shark swimming in any body of water. They dip the bun in water to soften it, which makes it quicker to eat in a hot dog eating contest. And instead of taking big bites, they take fast, controlled breaths to keep their airways clear. Competitive eaters train their gag reflex over time, allowing them to handle large amounts of food without choking. They use rapid swallowing and careful timing to ensure they don't block their airways while eating fast. He vanished while playing near a lake on a family trip. They searched for months but found no trace of him. Then, hundreds of miles away, he was found with a handyman. Now, the family was overjoyed to find their lost son, but the handyman insisted they had the wrong boy. Courts ruled in favor of the family, and the boy was raised as their own. But decades later, a DNA test revealed that he wasn't actually their child, meaning they accidentally kidnapped another boy, and their real son was never found. The hot wax dropped straight into her open right eye while she was getting her eyebrows done. She screamed as it burned through the surface. Later at the hospital, doctors found an ulcer and scarring, resulting in permanent damage, and she lost over half of the vision in that eye. She sued the spa and walked away with $400,000, and the salon was later shut down. Place the flies in the fridge until they stop moving. Then slice a matchstick in half and glue a paper-thin wing across the top. Add tiny drops of glue to the wing, one for each fly. Then stick the dormant flies on by their bellies, all pointing in the same direction. Breathe warm air across their bodies, and as they wake up, their wings buzz back to life, and the whole plane lifts off the ground. A tiny bullet was packed into the end of the key, and a safety latch stopped it from firing. This meant the guard could still use it to unlock cell doors. But if the prisoner tried to escape, the guard could release the safety, and when he pulled the trigger, a tiny flash ignited the gunpowder inside. This would shoot the bullet, stopping the prisoner in their tracks, and making others think twice before trying to escape. He fixed the rusty metal piece to the last spot and watched as the windmill began to turn. Now, people below were laughing and mocking at his creation. You see, a drought had struck his village, and without power, pumping water to their gardens was almost impossible. So he went to a library and found a book about windmills. With broken bike parts, scraps of metal, and an old tractor fan, he started building. Now, people thought he had lost his mind, but when he finally set it up, the blades began to spin, and a small light bulb flickered to life. For the first time, his house had electricity, powered by nothing but his windmill. He told the waiter their food wasn't cooked right, sending it back to the kitchen. Then he ordered a soda to go, sipping it as he drove home. But something tasted strange, and when the lid popped off, he saw a thick wad of spit floating inside. so he drove straight back to Chili's, confronting the waiter who denied everything. But police tested the drink, matching DNA from the spit to the waiter. The waiter was fined and the couple sued for emotional trauma. Every time he moved his cheek, it sent a signal to his computer. On the screen, a list of letters would slowly scroll by. When the one he wanted lit up, he would twitch his cheek to pick it. Now, his computer had been programmed with his personal vocabulary, meaning as soon as he selected a letter or two, the advanced system would immediately list words and phrases. When the sentence was ready, a robotic voice said it out loud.
I love Zack The Films.
They inflated the tanks, set up fake jeeps, and played loud recordings of troops and machinery. They were known as the Ghost Army, a secret World War II unit made of actors and sound engineers. Now, their job wasn't to fight, but to trick the Nazis into thinking a huge army was nearby. They faked radio chatter to trick enemy scouts, and even dragged tire tracks through the mud. The enemy wasted time and resources chasing an army that was never there. They ram their antlers into each other, locking them together, and they can get stuck so tightly that they can't be pulled apart. The two deer twist and struggle trying to break free, and this can last for days. Eventually, one will collapse from injuries and exhaustion, and the other is left dragging the body behind. To escape, it jerks and thrashes until the skull breaks free, leaving it stuck wearing the head and antlers like an unwanted trophy. A strip of leather was wrapped around a wooden rod, and a message would be written straight across it. But when it was unwrapped again, the writing would look scrambled. Now, if an enemy soldier stole it, he couldn't read it. Even wrapping it around another rod wouldn't help. The letters would still be jumbled if the size didn't match. But the person it was meant for had a rod that perfectly matched the original. When the letter was wrapped around, each wrap was the right length, making the letters line up to reveal the hidden message. The baby bird fell and hit the ground hard, and a man saw the whole thing. Immediately, he texted a picture to a wildlife rescue, who told him to bring the bird in. But he couldn't drive his car because he was drunk, so he ordered an Uber. The driver showed up and agreed to take the passenger by itself. And when it arrived, the staff found the baby bird weak but alive. She presses her tongue right against the surface of their eyeball and moves it all around. And this supposedly pulls out tiny pieces of metal and debris. Now, people actually travel to this woman, paying her to remove things in their eyes like this. And they claim she can heal most eye problems just by licking it. But it's actually dangerous because it can spread serious infections from her tongue that could leave you permanently blind. They would stick a stamp on their child, and the mailman would put them with the packages, charging 15 cents to send him 1 mile to Grandma's house. You see, when the post office started accepting large packages, the rules didn't say anything about humans. So families in rural towns started mailing them across the country. Some were sent over 700 miles away, riding the mail trains with the other packages. But when the government found out, they quickly put an end to it. They painted black and white stripes across the cow's back, then added thinner lines down the legs. You see, flies sense how light reflects off the cow's back, using it to guide where they land, then they bite into their skin. But the stripes mess with how the light reflects on the cow's back, scrambling the fly's ability to focus and slow down. So instead of biting the cow, they bounce off or fly right past. And that's the same reason why zebras evolved to have stripes. It lunged at the moving school bus and clawed at the hood, but the bus driver kept going. When the mountain lion fell to the ground, it kept attacking the tires before jumping up again. And finally, the driver ran it over. One boy jumped out the window and realized the big cat was actually still alive. He quickly pulled out his pocket knife and stabbed it in the heart. The children loaded the body onto the bus before displaying it at their school as a trophy. If you fall, sensors inside the vest trigger gas canisters inside. These canisters release helium, filling a hidden airbag that wraps around your upper body. And in less than half a second, the airbag fully inflates, wrapping around your chest and head. This cushions your landing by absorbing the impact, protecting your head, hips, and spine. It was designed for old people to aid during falls. If you were the only man left alive on Earth and everyone else was female, you would be responsible for repopulating the planet. But because all of your children would share half of your DNA, when they had children with each other, that DNA would overlap even more. And in just a few generations, nearly everyone would be close relatives, meaning the gene pool would shrink dangerously fast. Children could be born with misshapen skulls, twisted limbs, and other mutations. Inside, their organs might not develop right, and many wouldn't survive. The more generations pass, the worse it gets, until the population collapses again. If you shaved the head of every person on Earth and put it all into a pile, you'd have about 800 trillion strands of hair. And if you then rolled it all into a single hairball, it would weigh around 700,000 tons. That's almost twice the weight of the Empire State Building. If you somehow added all the human hair ever grown, the hairball could grow to the size of a small mountain. If you placed a slug on a slip and slide, how long would it take to cover it in slime? Well, a slug only moves a fraction of an inch per second, and a slip and slide is about 20 feet long and 2 feet wide. To completely cover it, the single slug would need to crawl non-stop for around 15 hours. But even with enough slime, slug mucus is thick and sticky, so it probably just wouldn't work. He stumbled drunk across the train tracks and fell asleep with his head on the rails. But within seconds, a cargo train rushed toward him. It slammed into his skull, spinning him around and dragging him beneath the train. And when it finally screeched to a stop, witnesses thought he was dead. But then he stood up. You see, because he was drunk, his body was relaxed and his limbs were loose, meaning that when he was hit, he moved easily with the train's force and walked away with only a few cuts on his hand. The punt gun was mounted to a boat and aimed directly at a flock of birds resting on the water. When you pulled the trigger, a spark ignited gunpowder deep inside the massive barrel. This explosion shot hundreds of metal pellets out in a wide, powerful blast. The recoil was so intense, it could make the boat travel across the lake. With one single shot, the pellets spread out rapidly, killing dozens of birds at once. When a cricket chirps, it rubs their wing that has a row of ridges against the other one that has a hardened edge. As it rubs them, the edge pulls against the ridges, and when it falls off each one, it makes a clicking sound. When it rubs fast, these clicks blend into chirping, and the wings catch the sound and reflect it out, making it louder and attracting a mate. Shave down the tail side of a coin to make it lighter, then drill a hole into the other side and add a small weight. If you throw it and let it bounce before it lands, gravity will pull more on the heavier side as it spins, and this will cause it to land tails down. But if it doesn't bounce, it'll spin in the air and rotate around its center of gravity, even if that's closer to one side of the coin. Heads and tails still spend equal time facing up, meaning they have the same chance of landing. He hid beneath the floorboards to spy on his enemy, according to the story. But as he crouched there, a spear suddenly stabbed down through the floor, piercing the ninja through the shoulder. You see, the guard had previously noticed mosquitoes hovering above the floor, and he knew they were attracted to humans. When he thrust his spear in, the ninja cried out, and a second guard smoked him out with a flamethrower, keeping the warlord safe. They would slide their hand inside, with a blade sticking out of the end, and inside, a metal grip bar would run across the palm, causing the soldiers to make a fist. When fighting an enemy, he would punch with that arm, putting all his force behind the blade and stabbing them. And the extra weight of the metal would drive the blade deep. But if the enemy managed to dodge, the soldier would be thrown off balance, leaving them exposed to the enemy with only one free hand. He pulled the trigger, sending the bullet straight into the lens of the scope, shattering it instantly. But he claimed that it kept going, following the path through the narrow tube without touching the sides. Finally, it exited the back of the scope and struck the sniper directly in the eye, killing him. It's remembered as one of the most precise shots in military history. They covered her mouth and dragged her away. Then they drove her deep into the jungle and left her there alone. She screamed for help, but no one came until she found a group of monkeys. Now, they ignored her at first, but they didn't attack. She slowly started to copy them, learning how to find food and climb trees. One monkey even helped her when she was sick, leading her to water. And she lived like that for 5 years, until hunters finally found her. She was adopted by a new family and had to relearn how to walk and talk. As the paper moves through the printer, tiny yellow dots are also printed across the page. These dots are placed in a tight grid pattern, so small that you can't see it. They go between the lines, along the edges, and even in the blank spaces. And each set of dots form a pattern that stays perfectly aligned. This pattern holds a hidden code, showing exactly when and where the page was printed, meaning printed pages can be traced back to the exact machine that made it. He would blow into the goat skin, then seal it up. Then he would jump into the river, holding the goat skin balloon under his chest as he swam. This helped him float, allowing him to swim long distances without getting tired. They were also tied to weapons to keep them dry, and this allowed them to cross rivers quickly and silently, meaning they could take their enemies by surprise. The bullets tore through his chest in a drive-by shooting, and 6 days later, Tupac died at just 25 years old. Now, his mother didn't want a massive public funeral, so his body was immediately cremated. And some say his closest friends and family took his ashes to a beach and sprinkled them into a wrap. Then they rolled it up, lit it, and passed him around, believing it was the best way to honor his memory. You place it in the baby's nose, then gently suck through the mouthpiece to pull out their mucus. But if the baby is sick, that mucus is full of viruses, and some are small enough to slip past the filter. You could inhale those germs straight into your lungs, and once inside, they multiply fast, filling your lungs with fluid until every breath feels like drowning. If you ever downloaded Angry Birds, the game logged your phone's unique ID number inside the app, but they didn't properly encrypt it, making it easy to steal. And this number can be used to track everything a person does on their phone. Angry Birds was sending these IDs through unprotected servers, where anyone could intercept them. Hackers, advertisers, and even government agencies began collecting the data. And for years, it helped build a global surveillance system, mapping where people were, where they had been, and who they were with, all from a game about birds and slingshots. The shell is thrown into a vat of ground corn cobs to clean it. Then the old primer is popped out using a special press. Next, a new one is carefully pushed into the base. The shell is filled with the perfect amount of gunpowder, and the new bullet is placed on top and pressed into the case. This seals everything tightly and makes it ready for reuse. As they pulled up beside the commercial plane, they looked inside the windows and saw everyone inside slumped over and passed out. And there was no one in the cockpit. You see, the crew forgot one switch before takeoff, and the cabin pressure dropped as the plane climbed into the air. The pilots misunderstood the alarm and tried fixing the wrong thing, but the oxygen was too low inside, and everybody passed out. The jet kept flying on autopilot, circling the city at 30,000 feet with no one at the controls for over an hour. One person was still conscious, and he tried to take control, but the engines had run out of fuel. The plane crashed into a hillside, and they all lost their lives. If you get a splinter, most people would rip into their skin with tweezers to dig it out. But if you cut the end off of a normal syringe, then press the open end firmly onto your skin directly over the splinter, you can quickly pull the plunger up, creating a suction inside the syringe. And this forces the splinter to move upwards, pulling it straight out of your skin. She was dragged away from the boat by a strong current, and when her brother tried to save her, they were both pulled down the river. Their dad jumped in and tried to catch up, but the kids were too far away. Now, if they had kept going, all three could have drowned. So instead, the boy swam for help while his father stayed behind. He doggy paddled over a mile until he finally reached the shore, and his family was rescued thanks to his bravery. He took the winning Monopoly tickets into the airport bathroom. Then he replaced them with the losing ones. You see, he was the head of security, taking care of millions of dollars worth of winning tickets. And he was supposed to deliver an envelope full of them to McDonald's packaging factories, where they were applied to cups and boxes. These would be sent out to restaurants, where customers would peel off the packaging, hoping to win. But instead, the man stole some, then resealed the envelope, making it look like nothing had happened. Now, if he claimed the prizes himself, he would be caught. So instead, he sold them to friends, asking for a fraction of the prize money up front. For 12 years, he got away with it, stealing almost $25 million worth. But finally, someone called in an anonymous tip, and since all the winners were connected to him, he quickly got caught and sentenced to prison. If you smash a glass, turn off all the lights, and lay a flashlight on the floor, the light will catch on the glass shards, and even the tiniest pieces will reflect the light back, making them sparkle. Then take half a raw potato and run it across the glass pieces. The sharp edges will stick into the flesh, and the potato will lift them off the floor, making sure it's safe to walk on. They drilled into the ground while laying on their stomachs, collecting samples of sand and clay. A lighthouse beam passed inches above their heads, and German soldiers patrolled nearby, but they kept digging. They quietly sealed tubes filled with sand and clay and crawled back to the water. You see, their commanders needed to know if the beaches at Normandy could hold the weight of tanks and trucks, so they managed to sneak samples without getting caught. These samples were then tested, proving that the beaches were solid. Months later, this secret mission helped the Allies successfully launch the D-Day invasion. The toddler fell 50 feet into a narrow well. Rescuers lowered ropes, trying to loop them around the boy, and they even brought in heavy machinery to dig the pipe out, but it took 11 hours just to dig a few feet down. Finally, a passing teenager offered to go in himself. A rope was tied to his waist, and he was lowered in head first. With a flashlight strapped to his forehead, he stretched out his arms to grab the child, and when they pulled him to the surface, he brought the toddler back up alive. The tea is handed to the doll, triggering a wound-up spring made of whalebone. As the spring unwinds, it drives a series of gears and cams, which move rods and strings that control the head and feet. And this causes it to move forward across the table. When the cup is removed, it suddenly stops. And these were built in 17th century Japan. Wealthy people used them to amaze their guests, serving tea as entertainment. Two tables are placed next to each other. One looks long and thin, and the other looks short and wide. But if you measure them, they're actually the same size and shape. This works because the legs drawn under the shapes tricks your brain, making it look like the tables are 3D, viewed from different angles. So even though they are identical, your mind stretches one and squashes the other. If you take the legs away, you can see they're the same, proving how easily your brain can be fooled. As she sat down on the outhouse toilet, something reached up and scratched her butt. She screamed, thinking it was a squirrel. But when her brother lifted the seat, he came face to face with a black bear. It had crawled in from beneath the back door and was living under the toilet. He slammed the lid shut, and they ran to safety, waiting for the bear to move out. And after that, they carried bear spray every time they went to the toilet. They sprinkled salmonella over the salads in local restaurants. And soon, hundreds of people started vomiting, with fever and diarrhea spreading fast. Now, at first, people blamed the workers, saying they didn't wash their hands. The police soon found that a local cult was responsible, poisoning over 700 people. This was to stop them from voting in the local election, so the cult's candidate had a better chance of winning. But instead of winning, they were charged and put in prison. The attacker fired the gun, aiming directly at the man. But at the same time, he put his bag up to cover his face. And instead of piercing his skull, the bullet hit the bag and flew straight into the iPad inside. It lodged itself in the metal, leaving the man unharmed. And he managed to tackle the gunman to the ground, holding him there until the police arrived. She was kidnapped and held hostage for 7 days, and her kidnappers planned to force her into marriage. But as the girl cried, a pack of lions suddenly appeared. The kidnappers were terrified, running from the scene and leaving their victim behind. But instead of harming her, the lions spent the next 12 hours guarding the girl. When police and her family finally got there, they found the girl shaken but alive, and the lions calmly walked back into the forest. The bull charged right at him, but just as it was about to strike, he hit a button, and the bull suddenly stopped. You see, the scientist had implanted tiny wires in its skull, and pressing the button sent electricity into its brain. This controlled the signals sent into the bull's body, causing it to stop mid-charge. But when people heard about the experiment, they panicked. They were terrified he would use the technology to control their minds, which put an end to the scientist's research. 80 feet below Manhattan, more than 6,000 tons of gold sit locked inside a vault. And this is worth over $500 billion. Most of it arrived from foreign countries who wanted to keep their gold safe after World War II. When a new deposit enters, it's logged, weighed, and stored in its own padlocked compartment. Then it's sealed behind a 9-foot-tall cylinder with a 140-ton steel frame around it. Cameras and motion sensors monitor the vault, and police patrol the entire system, making it one of the most secure places on Earth. They would poop through a wooden plank with a hole cut in it, right above the crashing waves. And whatever dropped went straight through the hole and into the sea. It was past the very front of the ship, so the wind would carry the smell away from the crew. But there weren't walls or railings, meaning in rough seas, a single wave could easily knock you overboard. A wire inside her pacemaker suddenly came loose, stopping the blood from pumping. She collapsed unconscious on the floor. Now, when her husband grabbed her by the ankles to move her, she suddenly woke up. You see, being upside down somehow reconnected the wire to her heart. But when she stood upright, it disconnected again. So to keep her alive until they could do surgery, her husband had to hold her upside down for over an hour. She locked her son inside the chicken coop when he was just a baby. And over the next 7 years, he was raised by the birds. He learned to move like them and make strange bird-like sounds instead of talking. And because he only ate chicken food, he didn't get enough vitamins, causing his bones to warp and bend. Even after he was rescued, he moved around like a chicken. And though he eventually learned English, his body never fully recovered. If you clap both ears, your cupped hands create a pressure wave that slams into your eardrums from both sides. This compresses the delicate hair cells inside. Now, these hairs convert sound into electric signals. Once they're damaged, they don't grow back. And if the pressure is strong enough, it can even rupture your eardrums, causing hearing loss and leaving you constantly dizzy. If you shot a bullet at a fly, would it be fast enough to move out of the way? Well, this is what we actually look like to a fly. To them, we move in super slow motion. This is because flies process what they see over 4 times faster than humans and can fly away in about 20 milliseconds. But a bullet moves at over 800 miles per hour, faster than a jet. And by the time the fly registers the bullet's movement, it would have already traveled over 20 feet, meaning it will get hit before it can react. He crawled into a hole in the wall after escaping prison and found himself inside a Toys R Us. Over the next 6 months, he built a home there, stealing from the store to decorate his home. He lived off baby food and kids' snacks, and exercised by riding a bike around the store at night. Eventually, he set up baby monitors to keep track of employees and even changed their work schedules, all so he could rob the store at gunpoint. But after police caught up with him, he was put back in prison.
Sure. Okay, sir.
Hey, who am I?
স্যার আমি এলাকার বড় ভাই আমি
ও সেলিম পাগল একটা শোন আব্বা
কেন খালু সে কি করেছিল তাকে কেন জেলে দিয়েছিলেন
কি করে নাই তাই বলো
আবার আসুন তো এরপর যখন আসুন আপনার মেয়ে আমারে ডেকে নিয়ে আসুন
অপটবি না
আমি পড়বো মানে আমি কি পটে যাওয়ার মতো মেয়ে নাকি হ্যাঁ তাহলে
আমি হইতেছি রিকশা তুমি হইতেছে এসি বাস মামা পাড়া নিত
মাডা মনে আর বাঁচবো না স্যার
বস কি তোর বাড়ি কই
স্যার
শত যে থাকবো সেও ব্যর্থ হইবে আমি চাই না আর কেউ ব্যর্থ মন যা চাইছে আপনি তাই করছেন এখন আমার মন যা চায় আমি তাই করব
তার মানে আপনি কবি না
জি না বড় ভাই
জান
মাইশা এখন তুমি আমার বাড়ি থেকে বেরিয়ে যাও যাও বলছি
আরে বেটা আইবো না জুয়েলের কথা কথা আরে জুলি গেছে ভাইজি
এরকম পট্টি দিয়ে রাখছস কেন
আমি চাই এই মহৎ কাজটার সাথে আপনি থাকেন আমাদেরকে একসাথে
দুনিয়ার খাসা বেটা হ্যাঁ আরে বেটা বড় ভাইয়ের মতো একটা বড় ভাই মানে টুকুর
কি করছো?
তেমন কিছু না এই যে ছাদে দাঁড়িয়ে আছি তুমি
আমি তো
মানে কি বলতেছো মা তুমি এগুলো মনে হইছিস না এই ছেলে তো যাবে না
আমি কিছু মাথায় নিচ্ছি না তুমি কি বলতে চাও সেটা বলো
করি এরকম অপেক্ষা আমি কতদিন করব বলো
প্রতিদিন কই সব
তবু যাচ্ছি বিপরীতে কাছাকাছি
বাবা বলতেছিল যে আমার তো বিয়ে করছে প্রায় 1 বছর হয়ে গেল আমি আসতেছি
আমার বলতেছো
তুই আমার ধরবি না
এই আর কি বলো আমি বলে তোমাকে জানাবো
ঠিক আছে বাবা
তুমি যাচ্ছ বিপরীতে
এই শৈলী অ্যাড্রেস বলো
সরে যাচ্ছি বহু দূরে
গ্রেট অ্যানাউন্সমেন্ট আমি এবং শৈলী আজকে বিয়ে করব।
এর দেনমোহরের 15 লক্ষ টাকা আপনাকে পরিশোধ করে দিতে হবে।
আরে তুমি ওর সাথে এভাবে কথা বলছো কেন? ও যদি শুভর সাথে ভালো থাকে থাক না।
আমি ভাবছিলাম তুই ভালো হয়ে যাবি, কিন্তু তুই মাল কোনোদিন ভালোই হবি না। যে খারাপ তারে ভালো বানানো যায়, আর যে চাই
তবু যাচ্ছি বিপরীতে কাছাকাছি সময় রং হয় বিলীন।
টেনশন করেন না, আপনাকে আমি বেশিক্ষণ রাখবো না, ধরেন 3-4 ঘন্টা হয়তো।
মা 1 সেকেন্ড দাঁড়াও, ফোন দিচ্ছি।
আমরা তো কিছুই জানি না কি সমস্যা, শুধু শুধু ছেলেটাকে এইভাবে বলো না তো।
তুমি চুপ করো।
আবেগ হচ্ছে করুণ শহর
পারবে না।
বিশ্বাস করো আমি আর কখনোই যাব না। মানিক কেন ডিভোর্স নিল? 15 লক্ষ টাকা মানিকে তুমি
মায়ার বাঁধনে বেঁধেছি মন ভালোবাসা।
ঝামেলা শেষ করো। আরে ভাই সাইন করো।
এটাও কিন্তু ইম্পর্টেন্ট। মানে ভালোবাসা হচ্ছে একজন আরেকজনের উপর ভরসা করে